it get to me, I'm just gonna creep down in Pumpkin Hill. I got to find my lost speeds. I know that it's here, I can sense it in my feet. The great emerald's power allows me to feel. I can't see a thing, but it's around somewhere. I'm gonna hold my head.
Casper. This is one of those films that is now forgotten. I wouldn't say forgotten completely, but no one really talks about this film anymore. I don't know why. This movie is like great. It's amazing. Visually, it's extremely iconic. If you're a 90s kid watching this, and if you haven't rewatched this in 20 years like me, because I only recently rewatched it last year, rewatch this movie. Your nostalgia will be up through the roof. Rewatch this movie. This is a fucking great movie. It brings back so many memories. Casper and the Ghost looks so good in this movie. I remember it like blew people's minds away at the time. I love the Casper sequels also. Casper Meets Wendy I loved, and the third movie, and I forget the name of the third movie. You noticed that the animation in the Casper movies just got worse as they went on. Like the first one has the best animation. Then 2 and 3, it's like second best. And they still look good. But in the fourth one, I think it was a Halloween movie or something. The fourth one was like, the animation. I remember they had a new Casper cartoon on TV also in the 90s, which wasn't as good as the movies. I've always been a cartoon aficionado, but when I was a kid, I had no idea that Casper was a cartoon character from the 1960s. And he had his own show back then and everything. When I was a kid, I just thought Casper came from this movie. So Casper used to be a franchise in the 90s. They did a lot with Casper. They just stopped, and no one talks about it anymore. Amazing movie. One of the best movies of the 90s. I guess you can say that Casper is a ghost now. He's a ghost of these days because nobody talks about him anymore. This is Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. I love this movie. They used to air this on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater back in the day. I loved the promos they gave for this movie when they aired it.
Daffy Duck has seen things. Seen things so terrifying, so repulsive, that frankly, we can't show them here. Well, we could show you, but, well, maybe just a peek. For those of you brave enough for more spine-tingling thrills, be sure to tune in to Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presentation of Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. Next Saturday at 7 on Cartoon Network.
When things get weird in the land of Looney Tunes, who you gonna call?
Daffy Duck, anything for a buck.
Yeah. But when the bad guys are calling, Porky, Bugs, and this duck are your best bet. Daffy Duck's Quackbusters, Sunday at 11 on the Family Channel.
I think it was when Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater first came out in like 99. God, I'm old. Anyway, basically it's like Ghostbusters, but it's Quackbusters. Get it? Because Daffy's a duck, you know. They have like an organization where Daffy, Porky, and Bugs, and they run this like operation where Daffy will go to places and solve these mysterious, crazy, ghost-like crimes that go on. It's basically their take on Ghostbusters. It's a parody of Ghostbusters with the Looney Tunes. That's pretty interesting, because Ghostbusters was huge in the 80s, and so this is like the Looney Tunes version of Ghostbusters, which is awesome. Daffy's great in this movie. It's one of his best things he's ever appeared in. The movie's really funny. I like the cartoons they picked for it. I think this has the movie with Bugs interacting with with Dracula, the vampire. I think that's in this movie, and that's really funny. I gotta tell you something fascinating that I discovered about this DVD cover. Look at this image of Daffy right here, holding onto the sign. I gotta say, I'm a huge Looney Tunes buff, so I actually think I know where that image comes from. I believe it comes from the scene in Space Jam, when Daffy looks at the camera and he's like, go to your house in 3D land, and he spits at the camera. I think they took the image of his face from that scene, a moment from that scene, and they basically cropped it and added that face of Daffy to the logo of this movie, which is super weird You know, I gotta say, it's a great picture of Daffy, though. And since I believe the greatest animation the Looney Tunes ever had was in Space Jam, with the budget, you gotta take stuff from that movie. They didn't have to, but it's pretty damn cool. Very, very weird, but cool. So I think this is one of the, in my opinion, this is one of the best Looney Tunes movies. And by the way, when I say this, the animation Space Jam is the best ever, I mean, like, aside from the 40s Looney Tunes cartoons, aside from the 1940s, other than that, Space Jam comes next as like top tier in my opinion. The beginning of this movie has Daffy Duck singing in a bar to a bunch of famous movie monsters, from the Blob to Dracula to the Fly, and he's singing as Mel Torme. And yes, actually, the Mel Torme really sang in that movie scene, which is really cool that they have that as an opening. I think that beginning of the movie is awesome. Yeah, so easily one of the funniest and the best Looney Tunes movies.
We have a childhood favorite from 90s kids everywhere. Of course, you all know this. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. During the 90s and the early 2000s, there was like a lot of Scooby-Doo movies, and they released them on video. I think a lot of people would agree with me that the earliest ones, like the first 3, were way better than the later ones. Like, this is way better than, like, Cyber Chase and all that other stuff. And The Witch's Ghost was really good, too, because it had the Hex Girls in it. But Zombie Island 1 was great. And the soundtrack was really great. It was memorable. It got stuck in your head, like, weeks after you'd watched the film. The animation is a step above the typical Scooby-Doo animation. It's like, this is when Scooby-Doo got better. To me, like, I always thought Scooby-Doo was an overrated cartoon series, but what I realized is that certain Scooby-Doo shows and movies I do like, but then a bunch of others I hate. And this one I love, and this was always one of my favorites. And I love this movie. Like, the music, the tone, the jokes are even like adult jokes in here too. It feels like the ultimate Scooby-Doo movie experience. And if you look back on the history of Scooby-Doo, this actually is the first Scooby-Doo movie before they made the live action one. Before this movie, it was all the cartoons. So Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, I did not see the return to Zombie Island. I heard people hated it. But the soundtrack for the original is amazing, and this is one of the greatest 90s cartoon classics of all time. I give Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, I give it 4 Beanie Babies. I gotta. You got The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a great movie. He's a great character. Don't you just love how this tape is black? You know, the others are white and this is black because it's darker, you know. In my opinion, I think it's a Christmas movie and a Halloween movie. It's a movie to watch in that sweet spot in between Halloween and Christmas, leading up to Christmas. It would have been great if they made a sequel to this film. Some people are a little too overprotective of their properties, like Mickey Mouse, for example. You know, it always takes like a million years for them to come out with a new Mickey Mouse thing. Same thing goes with this. It would have been great if they had a sequel and showed them together. Maybe they could have had a child or something and a new villain, whatever. And The Corpse Bride was pretty good. You really wanted something like this again. I mean, you did, but you wanted a sequel to this, you know? Yeah, so Jack the Pumpkin King is one of the greatest. He's a 90s icon, just like Crash Bandicoot and, Casper became a 90s icon. The Pink Panther movies, how they follow the same line of the sequels to the Halloween movies. Check that shit out also. Very strange.
This is Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf. And this is when Shaggy turns into a werewolf. And I saw this movie back in the day on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater. And I think that's why I got this on VHS, because it just gave me all these memories again. So this is like the red shirt era of Shaggy. There's like a mummy and Dracula, and they're hanging out in a castle in this one. There's a part of the film that is basically like a Halloween version of Wacky Racers by Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, this is a very good movie. I always liked this one, and I loved it on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater. And Dracula's pretty funny. The announcer chick is pretty funny in it, and there's like a parody of Vampira in this thing and all that. Shaggy wearing this his classic original green shirt on the cover is like a mistake. This is an older film, and when they re-released this in the 90s, they made this new cover, and then they screwed up the color of his shirt, because this is like an 80s movie, and in the 80s Shaggy wore a red shirt, so they like screwed up on this. But yeah, like back in the day on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, I watched it in the late 90s. But yeah, it's one of the more memorable Scooby-Doo movies before Zombie Island. I love that one, of course. That's the best Scooby-Doo movie. Here's another one they aired a lot on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School. The little mummy girl is really cute in this film. They hang out with these girls they meet that are like witches, and she's obviously a parody of The Bride of Frankenstein. It does blend in with the events of Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, because they both hang out in this giant castle in both films. And in both films, it just stars Scooby and Shaggy. Like, none of the other Scooby gang are in the film, like Daphne and Velma and Fred and all that shit. So, it's interesting.
It's been 9 years.
I be Orangebeard the pirate.
Now Garfield makes his triumphant return.
Halloween's my kind of a holiday.
Garfield's Halloween Adventure, next.
About to tell you has never been told to another living soul. Catchy beginning. This island is a secret. A deep, dark secret it has held for 100 years. 100 years ago tonight, a ruthless band of pirates held up in this very house, and on that stormy night, they signed a contract written in blood. They vowed to return for the treasure 100 years from Halloween night.